I'm here to talk to you about your data. That guy. So the thing is, in the last few years, there's been this whole big outcropping of all these free services, right? We get our email for free, we check our IMs for free, we have Twitter for free, we have Foursquare for free, and all of it's wonderful and we're all using it and it's great. The funny thing is that we get all of these free services because we're actually committing an exchange for our data. So every time we write a text message, oh, actually we pay for that. Every time we write an IM, every time we write an email, every time we check in, we actually get something served to us contextually based on the data that we're creating. So it's this implicit exchange, and it can be really, really good for a lot of fun reasons. Because one, I love lolcats. Thanks for coming up first. Yeah, thank you. It's good because we get all these awesome free services. We get to do email for free. We get to search for free. We get to do all sorts of cool new things like geocaching that I didn't know of until Foursquare came around. We get to do that for free. So we get all this new, cool, free stuff, and we get to use it all the time. The other thing is that this can also be kind of bad. Please help me with the slides. Thank you. It can be kind of bad. Sad cat, also lolcats. The reason that it's bad is that because if you have all of this free stuff competing for your attention and competing for similar uses, the weird thing is that all these companies are sort of battling it out like Betamax versus versus VHS. So you get all these compatibility issues, right? You get a few platforms in a very narrow span that do the same thing but don't really work together very well. So you start getting all of these crazy disparate pieces. You're using one thing and you realize you have to jump to a new platform because all your friends just went to that. And it kind of becomes a battle or it's a land grab for who can get the most users. And the funny thing is that we're finding out is that this sort of Web 2.0 utopia isn't actually turning out to be greater than the sum of its pieces. We have all this fragmentation in narrow silos, and none of us can make any of it work together. So suddenly my last FM history and my Pandora history aren't working the same way. So that's all about to change, Marty. The reason that's about to change is we're realizing that there isn't this sort of synergy of data across even similar platforms, but also disparate ones. So we're creating all this data, we can't access it, and we're finding out that access to data is actually more valuable, or as valuable at least, than free services. And these are some headlines that I think a lot of people have seen in the past, but we find out that Facebook is taking some liberties with our data, or the Wall Street Journal becomes privacy advocates. The reason that's important to all of us is because we like our data. And so as a result of this realization, we actually start to get all these new services that come up that aggregate our data. So we get things like Simple Geo that makes geolocation universal across applications. We get things like Mint that universalizes our finances. We get Greplin that allows us to search universally through all of our social networks. And then what we're finding out is that you could say the new killer app is actually our data. GigaOm's telling us that 2011 is a big year for data. TechCrunch has been telling us that big data is going to allow huge amounts of freedom. So if we can do something, we can actually if we do something with data, we can find out that the perspective of the web is actually fundamentally shifting to something new. It's no longer about sort of the unidimension, the single dimension of ourselves as a silo of data. So it's not just my last FM history. We're actually greater than the sum of our parts. It's the universe of data that we create across all the platforms, just as a person, but also across all of the people that generate data across all these platforms. So we have to find a way to wrap it all up. And actually, as a result of that, that's why a few of us got together and created something called Voyeural. And we believe that the future is going to be powered by access to data. So what we've gone and done is built an engine, a service, that actually gives data back to the people that generate it. So what this thing does is it follows you around the web, it broadcasts your clickstream in real time, but then it actually gives you all the data back in a meaningful way to draw correlations. So we actually do behavior to outcome, we do cause to effect, and we also do sort of how micro actions are influenced by the bigger picture. And the reason we're doing that is because if you take out the commodification of data, these are all these sort of gray markets and data auctioners. I don't know if you've ever heard of any of them, except for BlueKai maybe. But they sell all of our data all day long, through cookies, through browsers, through data tracking services, all this sorts of stuff. If we turn all of that commodity into something shared, something that we all want to use together, something that we're not so scared of, some really cool stuff can happen. We can actually make sure that the world changes for the better faster. And so we might not get as many cloud services in the near term, but actually what we get is transformative change in the long term. My favorite example is the scientists. They don't typically share data, but one day they decided to do it, and suddenly they make a huge breakthrough in Alzheimer's. It's no surprise. So I wouldn't be good if I didn't say, we all share, we all win. And so that's an invite to our private beta for Voyeural. If you just go to voyeural.com/ignite, you can start sharing your data too, and we can change the world together.